Hello viewers, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2014 Audi Q7 with a 3.0 liter engine. This vehicle has a diesel engine and the customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on the dash while the engine is running. The vehicle seems to drive fine. The only issue he has is the check engine light that's remaining on the dash while the engine is running. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. After confirming the customer's complaint, then we're gonna get the scan tool connected to the vehicle to see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine computer. Before we go in the vehicle, I wanna give a shout out to our famous cameraman, Kyler. Kyler is behind the camera. Kyler, thanks for being here. So now, let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. All right, I'm gonna start the engine now. Oh, before I start the engine, let's check out this vehicle. This vehicle is really nice. It's really clean inside. The owner keeps this vehicle really nice. And it smells good too. Kyler, this is probably one of the nicest or cleanest vehicle that we've gotten here so far, I guess.
I feel like you say that a lot.
Oh, really? We've gotten some nasty ones. Come on, Kyler.
The Lexus.
Yeah, the Lexus and the RV. Oh my gosh. We haven't even finished the RV yet. Guys, we have an RV out here. We started working on it. We're not done yet, but I can't breathe in that car. And guess what? We're not done because I'm kind of like, we're waiting for the last part to come in. The part for the RV. We have to do a clock spring on it, which is behind the steering wheel. So I have to sit on the driver's seat for more than half hour to do that. And I'm like, I'm not looking forward to that. Anyways, guys, clean your vehicles before you bring them to the shop. We would appreciate that. So now I'm gonna start the engine. Let's see, this vehicle has 97,000 miles, 949. So this vehicle has 97,000 miles. So it's below 100,000 miles. So let's start the engine. Okay, the engine is running. I hope you can hear it. I'm gonna show you the dash. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running. The check engine light is on and the tire pressure light is on as well. So that's customer's complaint confirmed. I got the scan tool connected. I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. Let's bring up our scan tool here. Let's scan the engine computer and see what codes we have. All right, so the scan tool is connected. We are screen recording. We're good to go. So now let's scan the engine computer and see what codes we have. Okay, right there, the scan tool has identified the vehicle, 2014 Audi Q7 with a 3.0 liter engine, TDI, with 97,000 miles. So let's click OK. Let's do a code scan like we always do. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle and see what we got. Kyler, do you want to take a guess? What do you think is wrong with this?
I don't know. It's not misfiring.
And the customer said it's not losing power, and the engine seems to run fine, but the check engine light is remaining on. So,
No clue.
No clue? Okay, that's fine. I don't have a clue either. Cameraman Kyler. All right, so we got 3 codes in the engine computer. So first code is P220000. It says NOx sensor bank 1 sensor 1 circuit. And then second code is P220100. NOx sensor circuit range performance bank 1 sensor 1. So there's something going on with the NOx sensor. Now, Kyler, you and I have done this. We did a Ram truck, the white truck we did recently. Yeah, pretty much same code. So on the Ram, the code was about the second NOx sensor, but on this one it's the first NOx sensor. So the NOx sensor before the SCR is now working properly. We have a circuit code. So this can be caused by a bad NOx sensor or a problem in the wiring of the NOx sensor. This is pretty straightforward and pretty self-explanatory. You know, when I see these codes, the issue is either the sensor or the wiring of the sensor. Now, the third code is P208400. It says exhaust gas temperature sensor 2 circuit range performance. Okay, so, you know, this is self-explanatory too. Something is going on with the exhaust temperature sensor, the second exhaust temperature sensor. This can be caused by a bad sensor or a problem in the wiring of the sensor. So let's scroll down and see what else we have in the other control units. We have 0 codes in the transmission control unit, 0 codes in the ABS control unit. We have 5 codes in the auto off key entry. Okay, so I'm gonna notify the customer about these other codes, but in this video, we're going to focus on the codes that we have in the engine computer. So let's keep scrolling down. Again, we're gonna print out all these codes and let the customer know. Now, on the generic side of the tool, we only have one code, P2200, NOx sensor circuit bank 1 sensor 1. Okay, so now what I wanna do is I would like to go in the engine computer. I want to look at some data. We need to look at some data PIDs from the NOx sensors and the exhaust temperature sensors, because there are 2 NOx sensors on this vehicle. There's one before the SCR and then there's another one after the SCR. So the NOx sensor's job is to measure the amount of oxides of nitrogen that we have in the exhaust stream. That sensor tells the computer how much NOx we have in the exhaust. Then the computer would know how to regulate the EGR valve. Okay, because if there's a lot of NOx, then the computer turns on the EGR valve to lower the cylinder temperatures inside the engine, which will eventually lower the amount of NOx. And the engine computer also looks at the input coming from the NOx sensors to know if the SCR, the catalyst reduction, the selective catalyst reduction unit, to see if it's working well, okay? Because the job of the SCR is to reduce the amount of NOx that goes out of the tailpipe. So now let's go into the engine computer. Let's look at the codes once again in the engine computer, because sometimes when you go in the module you might have more codes. Yeah, right there. Now we have 4, but we have 4. The NOx sensor codes are listed 3 times, and then the 4th one is the code about the second exhaust temperature sensor. So let's back out. Let's go to data. We might have to take this vehicle on a test drive to see how the NOx sensors are working, because when we drive and the exhaust system gets hot, our NOx sensors should start working. So the first NOx sensor should have a higher number of NOx, of data, parts per million, and then the second one should have a lower number because the second one is after the SCR. So let's go to emissions list. Let's see. I need some NOx sensor data PIDs. We got particulate filter, NOx. Okay, let me customize this list. I see some NOx sensor data PIDs here. Man, this lift is really annoying.
Yeah,
It leaks slowly.
it's making creepy noises.
Oh my gosh. Well, it has seen better days. All right, so let's customize this list. Let's deselect all. We're gonna grab our engine speed, coolant temperature. If our exhaust temperature sensor data PIDs are here, that would be great too, or right here. Exhaust gas temperature 1, exhaust gas temperature 2, great. Exhaust gas temperature 3, exhaust gas temperature 4. Wow, so this exhaust system has 4 temperature sensors. Interesting. And then let's go to our NOx sensors. So right here, NOx sensor 1, exhaust gas O2 concentration. NOx sensor 1, NOx sensor 1, NOx concentration value parts per million. That's what we need. NOx sensor 1, supply voltage. NOx sensor 2, parts per million. Great. Man, this is awesome. This is all the data PIDs that I want to look at. Very good. NOx sensor 1 concentration, actual value. NOx sensor 2 concentration, man, so many NOx sensor data PIDs here. Okay, so we're going to list all these data PIDs. I'm gonna graph our first and second NOx sensor value. So NOx sensor 2, NOx concentration actual value. We're gonna graph this. And then we're also gonna graph the NOx sensor 1 concentration actual value parts per million. Okay, so we're gonna compare the value that we have coming from the first NOx sensor versus the one we're gonna have coming from the second NOx sensor. Now, right off the bat, if we look at our temperature sensor data PIDs right now, the exhaust gas temperature sensor 1 is showing us a temperature of 153 degrees Fahrenheit. Exhaust temperature sensor 2 is showing us a temperature of 103 degrees Fahrenheit. And then exhaust temperature sensor 2 is showing us 139.2 degrees. So let me graph the second one. Okay, so right now what I want to do is let's watch our NOx sensor graphs, both of them, and let's also watch the exhaust temperature sensor data PID, the second exhaust temperature sensor data PID. So let's go on a test drive. I'm gonna get the vehicle off the lift. I'm gonna lower the vehicle, and then we're gonna take this on a test drive. All right, we got the vehicle off the lift. Our scan tool is connected. Cameraman Carlo will put the data up on the screen so you guys can see this. Now, right now, our NOx sensors are not going to read because the exhaust system is not really hot yet. So we're gonna go on a test drive. Eventually, these NOx sensors will start updating. They should start working in a little bit. So let's go on the road. Let's drive this and see what happens. Okay, we are on the road. Someone's gonna get pulled over. Do you think that cop was waiting for him?
Maybe.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
he's following him.
Yeah, he is.
Like, did he see him like coming or? Oh man. All right, anyways, guys, someone is getting pulled over in front of us. The cop car was parked, and then someone was driving literally in front of us. And then after it passed the cop, then the cop started following him. So I wonder if the cop was just waiting for him there. All right, so we are driving. You guys will see this on the screen. The first NOx sensor has updated. So there's a value of minus 18 parts per million on the first NOx sensor. Now, the fact that we have some movement on the first graph, this tells me that the wiring of the NOx sensor is most likely good. Okay, now it's working now. We have 1600 parts per million on the first one. Okay, first knock sensor is showing us something. The second one is not. Let's keep driving. Let's go all the way up the mountain. Now the thing is, it's kind of going up and down. So it went all the way up to 1600. Now it's down to 70. It was down to 79 and then 88 right now. It looks like this sensor is working erratically. Yeah, look at that. Let me scroll down and see what else we have here. The second knock sensor is still stuck at 0. That's interesting. I'm trying to watch the road and look at the data at the same time. We have to be safe. Safety first, guys. Let's see. Now, the interesting thing is the voltage supply on the second knock sensor is 0. That's odd. So knock sensor 2 voltage supply is 0, but knock sensor 1 voltage supply is 13,760 millivolt. So that is about 13.7 volt. Yeah, you guys will see this. Maybe the second knock sensor is not getting power. That's why it's not working. This is odd because look at this. Look at this data pin. Let me graph this. Let me graph the second one. Yeah, because this is not right. Yeah, look at this one here. Knock sensor 1 supply voltage. Now this data pin is in millivolt. We have 13,760 millivolt. That's for the first knock sensor. But for the second knock sensor, we have 0. So both knock sensors should get power and ground in order for the sensor to work. If the sensor is not getting power or ground, it's not going to work. So maybe this second O2 sensor, not O2 sensor, second knock sensor is not working because it's not getting power. That's a problem. Yeah, because look at these first two graphs. Based on what I see on the graph, this tells me that the second knock sensor is not getting power. So we're gonna have to go back to the shop and check the wiring of both knock sensors. Although the first knock sensor seems to be working right now, but you know, I would like to check the wiring of the second knock sensor and see if it's getting power. Yeah, so now when we look at the last two graphs, only the first knock sensor is updating. So only the first knock sensor is telling the engine computer what the NOx content is in the exhaust stream. The second NOx sensor is dead. It's not working. I'm surprised how we don't have a code for the second NOx sensor. We should have had a code for the second for a second NOx sensor because it's not working. I wonder if the computer is kind of misinterpreting the data that it's getting from these sensors. Instead of setting the code for the first NOx sensor, it's setting a code for the second. Instead of setting the code for the second NOx sensor, it's setting a code for the first one. Because according to what I see, the first NOx sensor seems to be working fine. So we're gonna turn around here. I don't wanna go too far. Let's go back to the shop and do some tests. Oh, it's working. Interesting. Second knock sensor is working now. Now let me look at our voltage peak. Oh, the voltage peak is now there. That's interesting. Okay, the supply voltage wasn't there before. Now it's there. You guys will see this. And now our second knock sensor is working. Okay. I guess it just wasn't too hot. Maybe it had to get really hot before it could start working. Now my question is why was this voltage supply, why was it low? Now it's been a while since I've read about these sensors. I didn't read about this before we started filming. So maybe this sensor produces a voltage when it gets hot. I don't know. It's possible. So to those of you who are Audi specialists out there, let us know. Tell me why the supply voltage on the first NOx sensor was stuck at 0 for a little while we were driving. Because right now we have voltage here and the second NOx sensor is working. Now here's the thing. Let me get this voltage data PIDs out of the way so we're not confused, okay? So many graphs on the scan tool can be confusing a little bit. So now watch this. We have about 153, so it's jumping up and down between 150 and 438 parts per million on the first NOx sensor. The second NOx sensor data PID is really low. It's going between 16 and 20 parts per million. The fact that the second NOx sensor data PID is very low, this tells me that the SCR is working. The SCR is doing its job. Because on a good working SCR, the amount of NOx that you have in front of it should actually be lower on the outlet of the SCR, because the SCR is supposed to break down the NOx. So you're supposed to have a high number of NOx in front of the SCR, but a very low number on the outside of it, so on the other side of the SCR. So this tells me the SCR is working. I don't like how the first NOx sensor is jumping up and down like this. So this NOx sensor is probably just lazy. This is a sensor problem. Look, it went from 100 down to 45 and then 30 and then 23. Yeah, this is just a sensor problem. Kylo, you will see this in the edit. Yeah, it's jumping up and down, especially the first one. So I don't think we have a supply voltage problem on the second NOx sensor. Second NOx sensor is good, and based on what I see, I believe the wiring of both NOx sensors is good. Yeah, this is gonna be a sensor problem. So I believe this first sensor, based on the data I see here, based on this graph, there are times where this sensor is not updating fast enough. It's pretty lazy. Kind of like what a lazy O2 sensor would do. Yeah. I mean, we're not just gonna change the sensor, we're gonna check the wiring. If the wiring of the first NOx sensor is good, we're gonna change the sensor. Now, we had another code. Remember, we had a code for the exhaust temperature sensor. So it was exhaust temperature sensor number 2. So right now, as I'm looking here, exhaust temperature sensor 1 has a temperature of 834 degrees, and then exhaust temperature sensor 2 has a temperature of 628. It's going between 628 and 639. And then exhaust temperature sensor 3 has a temperature of 574. And then exhaust temperature sensor 4 has a temperature of 476. Now, knowing that this vehicle doesn't have a lot of miles, it has under 100,000 miles, and based on what I see here, this is a sensor problem. We don't have a wiring problem. So here's what I'm gonna do. Let's go back to the shop. We're gonna check the wiring of the first NOx sensor. We're gonna check the wiring of the second exhaust temperature sensor. If the wiring of those sensors is good, which I believe it is based on what I see here on the scan tool graph, if those two sensor wirings is good, then we're gonna go ahead and change the NOx sensor and the exhaust temperature sensor. Okay, so we are back at the shop. I am going to back into the shop right now. I'm going to put this vehicle on the lift. Once I get this vehicle on the lift, I'll bring you guys back up. I'm gonna open the hood. We're gonna do a visual inspection under the hood first. Let me get a hood light. Let's figure out where these sensors leave. Okay, so I'm gonna remove the engine cover. This cover just pops off. Look how clean this is. Nice, yeah, he keeps it really clean. I love it. I like working on clean cars. Okay, let's pop this. Nice. Oh, it looks like getting to the first NOx sensor is pretty straightforward. Okay, let me get this cover out of the way. Yep. Can you tell where it's at, Kyler?
I think it's one of those back there.
Yeah. Man, this is pretty easy. We're getting lucky, Kyler. Usually it's not this easy. Remember the one we did on that Ram truck?
Yeah.
How hard it was to get to?
It was up there.
Yeah, but this one is pretty, okay. So here it is. This is the NOx sensor, this guy. If I follow the wire, comes over here, and this is the little computer for it. And then we can do our test at the wiring over here. Man,
Thank you, Audi.
Audi, yeah. This engineer, we should buy him a pack of beer. I don't know if this engineer drinks alcohol, but who knows, maybe. I mean, he's German. He most likely does. Okay, so it's gonna be so easy to test the wiring of the first NOx sensor, and here it is. We can remove it pretty easily. Now, what's this? I believe this is a O2 sensor. If we follow the wiring of this, oh, it goes to this connector. See that? Over there? Yeah, that's just an O2 sensor. That's just an oxygen sensor. Okay, so very good. Now, here's my other question. Where is the second exhaust temperature sensor? This one is the first one. See this here, Kyler? You see this little guy? That's the exhaust temperature sensor. So that should be the first exhaust temperature sensor. If you follow the wire, it goes over there. We have a code for the second exhaust temperature sensor. So we might have to lift the vehicle and go underneath, because I don't see another one here. So now I see a temperature sensor wiring here. See this? This is, you see how this wire kind of looks identical to this one? Yeah. This is some type of wiring shielding that resists the heat from the exhaust. So I believe this is a exhaust temperature sensor connector. Let me get a light. Okay, I was telling Kyler off camera, maybe we should be working on Audis more, because if this is the connector for the second exhaust temperature sensor, yeah, I think that's it. Because this should be exhaust temperature sensor 1, and then that one should be exhaust temperature sensor 2. It's actually, so this is the exhaust pipe. This over here, you see this bulky tube here? This looks like the catalytic converter. Yeah, this guy down here. Yeah, that's your SCR. So it's right after the SCR. So that should be the second exhaust temperature sensor. And this is the connector for it. Now, I don't know, Kyler, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. You might have to come on the other side here. So if you just follow this wire, you'll see it. So you might have to come over here. So Kyler is going to show you the location of the second exhaust temperature sensor. So this sensor here, yeah, this one, oops. This one over here is, this one is the second exhaust temperature sensor. Perfect. The wiring of it is this one. How easy is that? So we can do our testing over here. So we're gonna test these two wires and then we're gonna test the wiring of the NOx sensor. If the wiring is good, then we're gonna change the NOx sensor. Easy peasy, right? So I'm gonna grab my lab scope. We're gonna test the NOx sensor first and then we'll check the wiring of the exhaust temperature sensor. I'm gonna get the tools and then I'll bring you guys back up. I got my lab scope out here. We're gonna set it up in a little bit. But before we do that, I'm going to undo this computer for the NOx sensor. Okay, so we're gonna undo, there's a 10mm nut over here that I'm gonna remove. Okay, and then there's a second one up here. So now we should have access to the NOx sensor wiring. As you can see, it's a 4-wire connector. So one wire is going to be power, the other one will be ground, and the other 2 wires will be our communication wires. So I'm going to get my lab scope set up. Let's go to our scope multimeter. We're going to use 4 channels for this. We have our 4 channels on, so that's good. So now we're going to start with the yellow test lead. So we're going to ground it over here. We're going to connect this alligator clamp to ground right there. And then I'm going to back probe the first wire. Right there. Is Robin singing getting in the shot? No. No? Okay. Okay. So now we're going to back probe the second wire. We got Robin singing out here. We have a musician around here. And then we're gonna back probe the third wire. Just like that. And then we're gonna back probe the last wire. Okay, so we're back probing all the wires at the NOx sensor. I'm pretty sure this is gonna be a NOx sensor problem, but as you guys know, we just don't change sensors, we check the wiring first. I'm gonna turn the key on. So key is on. Let's see what we have on the lab scope screen. Yeah, right there. Yeah, you guys will see this. Okay, so the yellow trace is our supply voltage to the sensor. Green trace is the ground to the sensor. And then blue and red are our communication lines. All right, so based on what I see over here on the lab scope screen, this tells me that the wiring of the NOx sensor is good. The issue is the sensor. We're good, wiring is fine. I'll be right back. So now I'm going to test the wiring of the second exhaust temperature sensor. So I'm going to move these. So to test the exhaust temperature sensor, we just need 2 test leads. So we're gonna get the red and the blue out of the way. We're gonna use green and yellow. So based on what we saw, this is our second exhaust temperature sensor. So I'm gonna back probe the first wire and then I'm gonna back probe the second wire. Okay, let's see what we got there. Let's turn off these 2. Yeah, right there. So we have 1.08 volt on the yellow trace and then 0.04 on the green trace. So this over here tells me that the wiring of the sensor is good. The issue is the sensor. Yeah, the issue is the sensor. So let me disconnect the sensor connector. So when we disconnect the sensor, the voltage goes up to about almost 5 volt, 4.99 volt. Yeah, this is good. The wiring of the sensor is good. The issue is the sensor. That sensor is failing intermittently. So to fix this, we're gonna have to change the NOx sensor and the exhaust temperature sensor. And after that, this is gonna be good. We're gonna change the sensors, we're gonna erase the codes, and then we should be good to go. So at this point, based on the test results that we got, I feel comfortable replacing the NOx sensor and the second exhaust temperature sensor. So right now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make an estimate. I'm gonna talk to the customer. I'll send him the estimate. We're gonna get OEM parts. This is a European vehicle. I mean, when it comes to European vehicles, I always recommend OEM parts. I mean, on any vehicle, I always recommend OEM parts. But then it's up to the customer to choose whether they're gonna go with OEM parts or aftermarkets. But especially for these ones, I'm always gonna push for OEM parts. So I'm gonna make an estimate with parts from Audi. Hopefully we're gonna get the job. Hopefully the customer is gonna give us the go-ahead to fix this. After we get the parts, I'll bring you guys back up so we can get these sensors replaced. So I'll talk to the customer and then I'll bring you guys back up.